Welcome to Faith 7 Business, where stories ignite faith and strategy. Every word here is crafted to inspire, transform minds, and drive action. Do you feel like you're not enough? Not enough money, not enough resources, not enough opportunities? Stop for a moment, because the story of the 5 loaves and 2 fish reminds us. A miracle doesn't begin when you have much, but when you recognize and steward what you already have. And it's right at that moment the seemingly small becomes extraordinary. In the powerful story recorded in Matthew 14, verse 13-21, Jesus performs a breathtaking miracle. He feeds over 5,000 people with only 5 loaves and 2 fish, leaving behind 12 baskets of leftovers. But this isn't just a display of divine power. It's a deep, practical parable of cash flow management that speaks to both business and life. Lessons on cash flow management from the 5 loaves and 2 fish, Matthew 14, verse 13-21. More than just a material miracle, this event reveals a profound spiritual economic principle. When resources are managed with faith, discipline, and a clear vision, even the little can become an abundant miracle. With heartfelt insight and solid logic, we will explore 5 core lessons from this story. Lessons that can guide us in managing finances not just to survive, but to live purposefully and give generously. 1. Recognize the source of resources. Stewardship begins with gratitude. The story opens with a powerful moment. An unnamed boy brings 5 loaves and 2 fish, a humble meal, nearly irrelevant when compared to the overwhelming needs of thousands. But the lesson isn't just about quantity, it's about origin. Those loaves and fish, whether prepared by a mother or earned by a humble family, did not appear out of nowhere. They symbolize the provision already entrusted, not for hoarding, but for service. In modern business, this principle still holds. Every dollar of revenue, every investment, every fruitful partnership has a source and a purpose. Financial resources aren't merely products of the market. They are results of trust, effort, and ultimately, a gift from the Creator. As the early church fathers said, "We do not own, we are stewards of what has been entrusted." So a wise financial manager doesn't start with numbers alone. They begin with an attitude of gratitude toward the source of all provision. This shapes the ethical and spiritual foundation for every strategy. When you believe your resources are gifts, you'll spend with caution, invest with wisdom, and use with thanksgiving, not waste. Finance is not just arithmetic. It's an expression of the heart. And the right heart posture always begins with this recognition. What you have today is entrusted to you, not to keep, but to manage faithfully. From that mindset, cash flow becomes more than assets. It becomes a flow of blessing, starting from gratitude and moving toward mission. And that's the first step in managing cash in a deep, sustainable, and human-centered way. 2. Start from not enough. Courageously face the financial reality. The story continues with what looks like a moment of despair. Jesus faces a hungry crowd of thousands, while the disciples hold only 5 loaves and 2 fish. Matthew 14, verse 17. Nothing seems more imbalanced than the gap between need and available resources. Yet it's right at that low point that a miracle begins. Not from abundance, but from the courage to face scarcity. This moment offers a foundational but often overlooked lesson in cash flow management. Every recovery, every restructure, every path to sustainable growth must begin with the truth. The truth about your current numbers, the truth about your capital limitations, the truth about overspending, hanging debt, or unrealistic expectations. In business, startups, or personal finance, we're often tempted by false optimism. believing things will improve without ever checking the actual figures. But Jesus didn't ask his disciples to paint a fake picture. He simply asked, "What do you have?" And that honest answer, small as it was, became the starting point of the miracle. Lesson for cash flow. Before dreaming of surplus, have the courage to confront the shortfall. What are your 5 loaves and 2 fish? Maybe it's your only income this month, a near-empty savings account, or a modest asset you could liquidate. Financial honesty is the foundation of real recovery and prosperity. Quantifying what you do have pulls you out of vagueness and enables better decisions, cutting costs, restructuring budgets, or seeking new income streams. On the other hand, ambiguity and excuses are what ruin financial health, not because of a lack of opportunity, but because of a lack of clarity about your starting point. Reality can be harsh, but under the light of God's Word, it's always the place where faith begins to work. God doesn't require you to have plenty to begin. He only asks that you recognize what you have and surrender it. Remember, a miracle doesn't demand abundance, just awareness. And when you place your small, limited cash flow in the right hands, it becomes a stream of life, flowing not from wealth, but from humility and truth. 3. Bring them here to me. Focus your resources and trust in their multiplying potential. When the disciples expressed their helplessness in the face of overwhelming need, Jesus didn't rebuke them for having so little, nor did he demand they go find more. He simply said, "Bring them here to me." Matthew 14, verse 18. A short command, yet deeply powerful. It overturned natural logic. Rather than allowing lack to paralyze action, Jesus called them to gather what they did have and place it in his hands. That phrase still echoes today as a wake-up call in the art of financial stewardship. While many are immobilized by what they lack, miracles always begin with what you already possess. If you are willing to gather it, offer it, and trust in its inherent potential. Lesson for cash flow. Instead of complaining about limitations, ask, "What do I have in hand? What can I consolidate?" Maybe it's a few million dong in your account, a valuable relationship, a couple of free hours per week, or a rare skill set. But when those fragments are gathered and placed within a well-aligned strategy, they can become the seed of something extraordinary. In financial management, this is the moment to centralize your resources. Don't let them scatter across impulsive spending, unfocused investments, or half-hearted projects. Pull them together. Prioritize high-impact spending, profitable ventures, and mission-aligned activities. Don't let your cash flow become a trickling stream. Channel it into a powerful, intentional current. And above all, trust. Not just in miracles, but in your plan, once it has been prayed through and carefully prepared. Trust in the compounding effect of the small. Believe that, when placed in the right hands, whether it be God's or a wise strategy, the ordinary can be multiplied into something supernatural. Bring them here to me. That call still goes out to every manager, every entrepreneur, every person wrestling with tight budgets. Not to shame you for what you lack, but to help you recognize what you already have and believe that what is small is still enough. The willingness to give and invest, letting go to receive more. At the heart of the miracle lies a detail often overlooked, yet rich with spiritual weight. A young boy gave away his entire meal, 5 loaves and 2 fish, into the hands of Jesus. He held nothing back. No calculations, no conditions, no waiting for a guaranteed return. It was a pure act of surrender, sacrifice, and trust. And from that act of giving, a chain of multiplication was set into motion. A small meal, once released from personal hands, became provision for thousands, with 12 baskets left over. That story speaks a profound truth. Miracles don't begin when you hold back, but when you're willing to release. In cash flow management, giving isn't always about charity. It can also be a strategy of investment. It means allocating a portion of resources, even a small one, to generate greater value in the future. Picture a small business with limited profits, standing at a crossroads. Hoard every cent to protect itself, or invest a portion into developing a new product, training its team, or serving the community. The second option may seem risky. It may even appear to cost, but that's where real value is created. Healthy cash flow doesn't just hoard, it circulates with purpose. When you dedicate a portion of your budget to create impact, whether through product improvement, customer care, or social contribution, you are sowing seeds of faith, goodwill, and long-term loyalty. And those intangible investments, when guided by wisdom, will return as multiplied streams of blessing. Because in both spiritual and real-world economics, the principle of sowing and reaping is irreversible. Those who dare to plant rightly at the right time will harvest far more than what was sown. Giving is an act of faith. Investing is an act of vision. When combined, you don't just manage cash flow, you release miracles through it. Faith in multiplication, when small cash flow becomes the doorway to overflow. What astounds us most in Matthew 14 isn't just the fact that everyone ate their fill, but the nature of the multiplication. From 5 loaves and 2 fish, a personal meal, came a banquet for thousands with leftovers. Jesus didn't create new bread out of thin air. He multiplied what already existed. This reveals a deep financial truth. Faith in the multiplying potential of current resources is what distinguishes a good manager from a great leader. As Maid of Still rightly puts it, with wise management, clear direction, and strong faith, even limited resources can exceed expectations. That faith isn't abstract. It is grounded in discipline, creativity, and steadfast execution. In business, this means using cash flow strategically to maximize impact. You may have a tiny marketing budget, but if you invested wisely in the right campaign with emotional resonance at the right moment, it can trigger a revenue wave far beyond your original spend. Similarly, a company that dares to invest in automation or innovation, even at a short-term cost, can reap efficiency gains many times over in the long run. That's not just capital investment, it's faith in multiplication. This kind of faith invites leaders to look beyond present limitations, not to be paralyzed by what they lack, but to see the potential inside every dollar, every person, every opportunity, and ask, how can I multiply this? Miracles don't require sufficiency to begin. They begin when you believe the small can become great in the right hands, and you act on that belief. In finance, those who dare to invest wisely in the future, even with little, are sowing the seeds for exponential return. Cash flow is not just about control, it's faith in motion. And faith in multiplication opens the door to abundance. 4. He gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. Building effective distribution systems and the art of delegation. When it came time to distribute the bread, Jesus didn't personally go around feeding each individual in the crowd. Instead, he gave the food to his disciples, and they distributed it to the people. Matthew 14, verse 19. Behind that simple act lies a powerful model of leadership and organization. Delegation, division of responsibility, coordinated execution. Though Jesus had the divine power to do it all himself, he chose to systematize the miracle through others. Because he wasn't just feeding the people, he was training leaders. He wasn't only performing provision, he was entrusting others with the mission. Lesson for financial stewardship. Cash flow, whether in personal life or in business, only becomes truly effective when it is placed within a clear, reliable, and intentional system of distribution. Even the most brilliant financial strategies can fail without the right people, well-defined processes, and a framework for tracking and accountability. In personal finance, the disciples may be tools and systems that assist your cash flow management. Budgeting apps, spreadsheets, automatic savings setups, recurring payment systems. When you delegate to a system, such as scheduling monthly transfers into an emergency fund, you are applying the very principle of "He gave to the disciples, and they distributed." You're not doing everything manually. You are building a system that serves you. In business, the disciples are your people and departments, chief accountants, finance managers, team leaders responsible for spending in their units. When you establish delegated budgeting processes, clear approval protocols, and regular reporting systems, you create a transparent, controllable cash flow stream. A good system not only ensures that money is spent properly, it frees the energy of leadership to focus on vision and growth. With the clear and passionate tone of an American adult speaker. Delegation done right also fosters ownership and responsibility. A department head with a budget of their own will spend more wisely, plan more carefully, and invest more strategically than someone who has to depend entirely on top-down decisions. Trust creates responsibility, and responsibility lays the foundation for growth. Cash flow management isn't about micromanaging everything. It's about designing a living ecosystem that runs intelligently. You are the architect of the foundation, but the actual flow of funds must be entrusted to capable hands, guided by a transparent, flexible, and measurable system. Jesus didn't do it alone. He trained others, placed the bread in their hands, and the miracle spread through collaboration. In financial leadership, the same is true. A vibrant, well-structured system with empowered people is the outstretched arm of any successful financial strategy. 5. They all ate and were satisfied, the miracle of growth and resource optimization. From just 5 loaves and 2 fish, thousands of people were fed, not with symbolic portions, but until they were truly satisfied. This wasn't just a picture of divine abundance. It was the living result of a series of wise, faith-filled, and strategic actions. Identifying resources, focusing what was available, creating a clear plan, distributing an order, and empowering the right people. In cash flow management, sustainable growth does not arise from thin air. It is the miracle born from financial discipline, perseverance, and the application of sound principles. A small savings deposit, when consistently invested, can grow significantly through compound interest. A well-timed investment in a skills course can open doors to new income streams. A wise decision to restructure operational costs can boost profit margins for an entire year. True growth doesn't come from waiting for a miracle to fall from the sky. It comes from looking at what you already have and stewarding it with disciplined faith, an investment mindset, and serious preparation. Optimized finances don't require abundance at the start. They simply need to be placed in the right strategy and run with the heart of a faithful steward. 6. They picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. No waste, savings, and emergency reserves. The miracle didn't end when the crowd was fed. Jesus didn't walk away in glory after everyone had enough. He gave a final command: collect the leftover pieces, and the result was 12 baskets full. Matthew 14, verse 20. This powerful detail isn't just about neatness or order. It's a commanding lesson on saving, preventing waste, and building financial reserves. In today's fast-paced consumer culture and spend-it-all mindset, this principle sounds a clear wake-up call. Every dollar left unmanaged, Even a small one is an invisible leak that can grow dangerous over time. Combating waste. Whether in personal life or business, uncontrolled spending, unused subscriptions, or low-impact purchases are the forgotten crumbs of everyday finance. Wise cash flow management begins by urgently identifying and sealing those leaks.
Saving and accumulating. 12 baskets full is the symbol of small things adding up to something substantial. No one starts with a vault. They start with the habit of saving the smallest amount. Saving isn't a lack of trust in God's provision. It's a sign of faithfulness with what has already been entrusted. Emergency fund, the wisdom of the forward thinking. An emergency account for individuals, a crisis reserve for businesses. These are the 12 baskets of modern finance. When main cash flow is disrupted by a pandemic, a market downturn, or an unexpected crisis, your reserve fund is what keeps your business standing, your family stable, and your mission moving forward. That's why financial miracles don't end with satisfaction. They live on through savings, accumulation, and preparation for tomorrow. The wise don't just eat for today. They set aside for the future, for the next generation, for the return of scarcity, or for the vision that still needs to be fulfilled. 7. Beyond the numbers, faith, compassion, and a greater purpose. The story of the 5 loaves and 2 fish is not just a lesson in resource management. It didn't begin with a spreadsheet. It began with compassion. Before organizing, before teaching, and even before performing the miracle, Jesus saw the crowd and was moved with compassion. Matthew 14, verse 14. That moment of compassion was the starting point of everything that followed. The miracle didn't happen because Jesus was more skilled at distributing bread than others. It happened because he saw the hunger, not just of the body, but of the soul, and he chose not to turn away. It was compassion that activated faith, and it was faith that gave birth to a divine strategy. Lesson for cash flow management. Financial stewardship is not just about numbers. It is the story of a heart that knows who it is managing for and why discipline matters. You save not out of fear, but to prepare for the future of those you love. You invest not just for return, but to increase impact, expand opportunity, and remain faithful to your calling. You create a plan not to control money, but to align it with the mission of your life. Cash flow, when disconnected from purpose, becomes dry and rigid. But when it is rooted in a higher vision, it becomes a river of life. So the most important question isn't, how much do I have? But rather, what am I managing for? Is my cash flow serving a purpose greater than itself? Do I dare believe that what I hold, though small, can be multiplied by the hands of God? When you enter the journey of financial management with faith, compassion, and a clear sense of purpose, you stop being just a budget planner. You become a steward of grace, someone called to multiply the little for the sake of many. The true miracle was never just in the bread. It was in the heart that knew why the bread was broken. Practical application in business. The lessons from the story of the 5 loaves and 2 fish are not just spiritual or moral. They offer real, actionable insights for financial leadership in business. When viewed through the lens of financial stewardship, the principles of this miracle become a living blueprint for leaders, from solopreneurs to large organizations. 1. Recognize the source. The first lesson, acknowledging the origin of resources, reminds us that every financial stream, whether from product sales, investors, or grants, must be recorded, tracked, and managed with reverence and transparency. Resources aren't ours by default. They are entrusted to us, and we are responsible to handle every inflow and outflow with care. 2. Courage to give. The young boy's act of giving his entire meal inspires companies to set aside a portion of profits, even small ones, to invest in long-term growth areas, such as R&D, staff development, emerging technologies, or community impact. This kind of bold giving not only creates lasting value, but also generates trust and opens doors for innovation and renewal. 3. Faith in multiplication. Businesses are encouraged to think beyond limited current resources. A small marketing budget, when used wisely, or an investment in a training program or digital upgrade, can yield exponential returns. This is the art of creative strategy grounded in disciplined faith. 4. Organization and delegation. Just as Jesus broke the bread and passed it to the disciples for distribution, business leaders must develop structured budgeting systems, departmental accountability, and real-time financial oversight. When resources are allocated to the right people at the right time for the right goals, cash flow becomes efficient and purpose-driven. 5. Build financial reserves. The final image, 12 baskets full of leftovers, is a powerful call to build financial reserves. In practice, this means setting aside enough capital to weather disruptions, economic crises, supply chain issues, or market downturns, and to seize sudden opportunities without risking instability. When these principles are applied in business, spiritual truths become strategic actions, and faith becomes sustainability. The miracle of the 5 loaves and 2 fish is not a fairy tale. It's a living, breathing model of financial management for leaders with vision and faith. Let me know if you'd like this formatted as a devotional guide, training slide, or leadership booklet for business leaders of faith. Recognizing the source of your resources. First, the story reminds us of the importance of recognizing the origin of all resources. Every revenue stream, whether it's sales income, investments, or financial support, must be recorded, monitored, and managed with respect and transparency. Rather than assuming that resources are simply ours, wise managers understand they are entrusted with them. Therefore, every inflow and outflow must be handled with faithfulness, discipline, and care. The courage to give. The boy's willingness to give his entire meal inspires businesses to set aside a portion of their profits, no matter how small, to invest in meaningful areas such as R&D, workforce development, emerging technology, or community initiatives. This act of bold generosity not only creates long-term value, but also opens new doors for innovation and strengthens both internal and external trust. Faith in multiplication. This principle encourages companies not to be limited by the size of current resources, but to be strategic and creative in how they use them. A small budget, if wisely allocated, whether to a marketing campaign, management software, or a training program, can generate returns far beyond the initial investment. This is the power of faith-informed planning. Structure and strategic distribution. Just as Jesus broke the bread and handed it to his disciples to distribute in order, businesses must establish clear budgeting systems, assign financial responsibilities to specific departments, and monitor cash flow in real time for wise adjustments. When allocation is timely, targeted, and mission-aligned, cash flow becomes a force of efficiency rather than chaos, reducing waste and maximizing impact. 12 baskets full, saving and reserves. The story ends with 12 baskets of leftovers, symbolizing the importance of saving and building financial reserves. In practice, this is a reminder that every business must maintain a financial safety net, enough to survive unexpected shocks such as economic downturns, supply chain disruptions, or market crashes. Reserves also allow businesses to seize sudden opportunities without financial strain. From miracle to model, building a sustainable business ecosystem. When spiritual principles are translated into practical actions, they don't just lead to strong financial results. They build a sustainable, human-centered, mission-driven business ecosystem. The story of the 5 loaves and 2 fish is not a fairy tale. It's a living model of cash flow stewardship for leaders who operate with both faith and strategy. The flow of life. The image of 5 loaves and 2 fish is more than a material miracle. It is a timeless message about the true nature of prosperity. Abundance does not come from owning a lot, but from recognizing, stewarding, and multiplying what you already have, even if the starting point seems small. From the humble first step of recognizing your current resources, to focusing and aligning them, strategic planning, building efficient systems, distributing wisely, optimizing small pieces, saving carefully, and acting with faith and purpose. When all of this comes together, it creates a living, vibrant financial ecosystem. In a world of constant motion, where opportunity and risk collide daily, these seemingly simple principles from this ancient story become a survival manual for anyone navigating a financial journey, whether in personal life, business, or community leadership. Beyond profit toward meaningful wealth. When applied correctly, cash flow is more than a tool for material satisfaction. It becomes a vehicle for building a life of deep meaning, solid foundation, and generous impact. When cash is not driven by fear or greed, but soaked in gratitude, faith, and mission, it stops being a temporary resource and becomes a flow of life. A flow that nourishes dreams, sows lasting value, and fulfills the good work each of us is called to complete. From miracle to practice. This story is not merely about food. It is a living model for the art of resource management, especially cash flow. Behind the material miracle lies a timeless chain of wisdom. Recognize the source of your provision. Be willing to give with trust. Expect multiplication even from the smallest seed. Distribute wisely with structure. Save and prepare for the future. These principles aren't just relevant in today's business world, they are powerfully applicable across all aspects of life. How we spend, how we invest, how we take responsibility for what we've been given. When we understand that every dollar, every resource carries both sacred purpose and the potential to multiply, we stop spending randomly and start acting with wisdom, gratitude, and vision. Even if you start with very little, just 5 loaves and 2 fish in your hands, if you place them in the right hands, build the right systems, and nurture the right faith, what seems small can multiply into something extraordinary, far beyond what human logic could predict. The miracle that once happened on a hillside for 5,000 can happen again today, in your life, if you steward as the Master once did. Thank you for walking alongside Faith 7 Business. Your follow is more than a number. It's a mark of faith, a hunger for transformation, and a shared journey toward lasting value. Keep journeying with us, where storytelling, faith, and strategy converge to spark inspiration and action. Pin, don't miss the upcoming lessons packed with real-world strategies, transformational insights, and powerful leadership principles crafted for purpose-driven entrepreneurs like you. Faith 7 Business, writing to lead, living to make an impact.